All right, hey guys, thanks for joining us today. I'm Rick here. This is episode 7 of Cage Side Convos.
And what up? I'm Quince. Thanks for tuning in once again. Actually, we're kicking the week off in celebration, I would say. My dude Rick had a personal milestone just this past week and became a purple belt, which is impressive. So, round of applause at home. Round of applause at home. Very cool to see, and this happened last Thursday.
Correct. Yeah.
And it was unbeknownst to you.
Yes.
From my understanding, and you kind of told me this. You kind of told me the story of your entire day, which I thought was kind of novel, to picking up the belt that night.
Sure.
But it started out with an early morning training session. I think
Yep.
cardio kickboxing, and I think it was just you and I.
Yeah.
And what did we do? We ended up sparring.
Yep.
For a large part of that morning.
Sure.
And just tell me, kind of recap the day in itself, the day as a whole, from that morning on into that night, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, I mean, it was kind of one of those off days where it was just you and me in here in the morning, and you wanted to get some work, and I was like, hell yeah, so we put in some modestly hard rounds, just kind of sparring a little bit. Then I had a couple hours between that, and then I had a jiu-jitsu session at noon, regularly scheduled here at American Top Team. So regular Thursday afternoon class. After class, we kind of drilled for about an hour, and then did some rolling rounds. So, put in another half hour of pretty hard, hard work. Later that afternoon, I had one of my friends and students, Peter, came in, and he and I came back to the cage and just got just getting some tie reps in. And then Coach Joey came in and joined us. So it's kind of one of those things where we all start getting a little excited. There's 3 of us who are just, back and forth taking turns getting reps. Next thing you know, it's almost 2 hours into it. We're just back here just sweating our ass off, just, throwing hard reps and stuff. So it ended up being an unexpectedly hard training session,
Sure.
And I, being one to always advise students and fellow athletes and stuff, space out your hard training sessions. Don't do them all in one day,
Right.
So here I am on my 3rd hard training session on the day.
Right.
Expecting nothing of it. So, that's about 5 o'clock, between 5 and like 6:30 or so. We were training, and 7 o'clock comes around. It's time for jiu-jitsu that night. Ended up being a pretty small class. It was myself, my friend Ed Stevens, my buddy Tom Midgley, and then Brendan was here, and then one of our newer students, Anna. So it was advanced class. So kind of. We're all blue belts at the time, and Brendan, you're almost there, buddy. I know you're watching. You're getting there. Don't worry about it. So we drilled, and it was a pretty kind of standard class, just some light drilling and stuff, going over some technique and everything. And a little after 8 o'clock, so class ends at 8:30. A little after 8 o'clock, Coach Paul kind of had us start doing some like positional sparring and stuff. So usually it's kind of light, and we all kind of take turns. So a couple of the guys got some reps, and then Coach had me come in and had me get some reps, and then had the guys start dialing up the resistance and stuff, and it starts getting more towards like 70-80% sparring pace. And instead of having me rotate out, he just keeps having the other guys rotate out. So Ed and Tom, who are both blue belts, and then again Brendan, who's good white belt, coming along his progression and stuff. And these guys are all not taking it easy. And they just keep reps and reps and reps and reps. And finally, about 15 minutes into this, I realized kind of what I think's going on. Okay. And Coach Paul's jumping in every now and then and just smashing the shit out of me. So ends up being about 25 minutes of just really, really hard positional sparring. Like I said, those guys just rotating through.
Right.
And we ended with like some hard wrestling rounds and stuff. And so we get done, I get up, I'm all sweaty. He's like, all right, guys, go line up. Just like, the end of class. And he pulls the purple belt out of his gi. And I kind of, I'd gotten to the point mentally where I thought that I was like, all right, whatever, when it happens, it happens. But when he actually pulled the belt out, I kind of, I don't know, man, the sense of gratitude for the journey and just kind of everything really, really culminated. Very, very happy. And very relieved that it was, that it, was
Right.
finally there. Like you said, kind of the next milestone.
Because essentially you don't know when it's coming, do you?
Right. Definitely not with Coach Paul either.
Sure.
He likes to play that one close to the chest, man. He puts you through the paces, and he's constantly evaluating and seeing when you are and stuff, and he'll kind of drop you hints that you're doing the right thing, that you're on the right path and stuff. And when the actual day is coming, when it's going to happen, he usually likes to keep that pretty quiet, pretty under wraps.
Man, it's interesting. So I think the whole story is interesting when you were telling me it earlier, because I went through and I looked up what a purple belt actually meant, and this is for jiu-jitsu. And at any point, correct me if I'm wrong.
Don't worry, I will.
Yeah. The purple belt is for jiu-jitsu, and it's just 2 underneath the black belt. So there's purple, and then there's brown, and then there's black.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's estimated from about 1.5 to 3 years into the practice. I mean, that's just what I found. So I mean, that's definitely time spent and time put in. But I was looking up the kind of the definition of the representation of the purple belt, and it said it represented dawn, and it represented the sun, the color of the sky when the sun starts to come over the hill.
Sure.
And it represented to you personally in your advancement to becoming basically becoming a teacher yourself,
right.
A coach yourself. And every part of that story that you told me, in the early morning you were working with me. You said I wanted to spar, and what did you do? You threw on some gloves and you sparred with me. And then, was it Peter at noon?
Yeah. He was one of the guys in here, but just like the regular noon jiu-jitsu class that day. Yeah.
Right. And throughout these stories, there are so many people that you're helping, just as part of your regular Thursday. That was just a Thursday for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so to hear you go through this full extent of, I'm sure it was a lot of wear and tear on the body, on the mind for that day.
Sure.
But then to be rewarded that belt that represents everything that you embody and have grown to embody. My question is, like, does it feel, you're a purple belt now. A week ago, you were still a blue belt?
Blue belt, yeah.
Do you feel the difference? Do you still feel like the same person?
Yeah, so that's, I guess, to be completely honest, no. Now, kind of have a saying in jiu-jitsu, the belt only covers 2 inches of your ass. You're responsible for the rest, right? So basically, the color of your belt doesn't matter, right? But I think there is a sort of symbolic significance of it, and like, my jiu-jitsu is not going to change overnight. Just because I got a different color belt, I'm not going to be magically better from one day to the next. Right. I'm 4 days into it now. I trained Saturday. I trained last night a little bit. Got some rolls and stuff in. But I do notice I feel much more relaxed, much more calm. I'm focused on it less. Because with as much as you train and as much as you have that mindset of belt doesn't matter, I'm going to do jiu-jitsu forever, it doesn't matter what color belt I have, no matter how much you have that, there's definitely a reward, and so that reward mindset, there's a gratification, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, in receiving that next belt, and it's a symbol, like you said, it's a symbol of hard work, too, but I like that. I like the dawn metaphor, because the way that my coach explained it to me is that purple belt signifies you're a beginner expert. Right?
Okay.
We're a beginner, right? You're starting over. I'm a beginner expert. Now I have to start my expert journey. Now I have to actually know what the hell I'm talking about. People expect a certain thing out of you, but and again, like, dawn, it's the beginning of the day. It's every belt you get is kind of the rebirth, like the beginning of the journey again. And yeah, so again, logically, I know my jiu-jitsu hasn't changed. I'm not any different, but I feel calmer. I feel like, okay, I'm moving forward. I know I'm progressing.
There you go.
Kind of that. We talked a couple weeks ago about goals, about tangible goals versus intangible goals. This tangible goal, the belt rank, you're getting stripes on your belt and stuff. That's just a reinforcement that your coach, your instructor knows that you are progressing. You know?
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's a good feeling. And, you know, and that belt itself, because like you said, it's just a belt.
Right.
And represents all the work that you have been putting in.
Right.
You know, up until that point. But something that helps you trust that process. You know, waking up so early in the morning, you know, getting that routine and continuing that routine.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess speaking of routine, because I would imagine that belt alone is not always enough to motivate you. And I guess this is more of a question than a statement.
Sure.
Is that belt, no matter the color, always the main motivation?
No.
No.
No. And honestly, the belt, like, so you use the word motivation, right? The belt can be motivating, but it's not what's going to keep you coming in, right? Because we talk a lot, you know, about the difference between motivation and discipline,
Sure.
right? Motivation wanes. So if you come in on your first day of jiu-jitsu, you say, I'm going to get a black belt. First day ever doing jiu-jitsu, like, I want a black belt. That's what's going to motivate me to come in. Average, that's a 10-year process. Right? For most people who casually train, 10 years from your first day on the mat until you get your black belt. It's a decade. That's a long time. And if you rely on, I'm going to get my black belt to motivate you to get pumped up to come in, that's
not happening.
No, hell no, man. Hell no. Shit, there was some days where, when you get ranked, it's usually 4 stripes on a belt, and then you get the next color. So I had 4 stripes on my blue belt, and before I got my purple belt, and I was 4 stripes for minimum 6 months before. Honestly, man, I put so little stock into it because I didn't want to get ahead of myself that I forget the exact day I got my 4th stripe. You know,
Right.
But there was some times between that 4th stripe and getting the belt that even just getting to that next step wasn't motivation enough to come and train. You know, I was like, well, if I don't go in tonight, I'm not getting my purple belt. Sometimes it's like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
the motivation just wasn't there.
Right.
You know, but the discipline had to take over because I knew, if I missed that day, I wasn't going to get that next belt, and I didn't give a shit about that. But if I missed that day, then I wasn't going to get better that day. You know, so
sure.
the kind of more of that long-term mindset had to set in, and I had to rely on that. You know, so if you're relying on that belt, that promotion, that next stripe, whatever, if you're focused on that tangible goal, those are the people I think that quit a lot. The people that get frustrated, the people that quit showing up, you know, are the ones that do rely on that physical reinforcement, you know. And again, not saying I've never fallen victim to that, because and I've been, so it was October of 2016, I got my blue belt, and then, you know, September of 2019, so almost 3 years I was a blue belt. So there's definitely times I've been frustrated in that.
3 years you were a blue belt?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so from the first time I ever trained jiu-jitsu, been a little over 5.5 years that I've been training, you know, and there, you know, I trained, some buddies of mine took me under their wing, and we'd go to the wrestling room at South Jeff there in Adams on a Sunday. It'd just be the 3 of us doing jiu-jitsu. They'd teach me a little bit here and there. But it was like once a week, and then that kind of faded away. And then when I started training at the gym, I was doing almost all boxing. It was over a year into my training before I ever even put a gi on. You know, so it was kind of hit and miss there for a little while. But I mean, from the first, and I like to think of it in terms of the first time I ever trained until now, you know, because that's all of my journey. You know?
Right.
So a little over 5.5 years to get to that purple belt. Like I said, almost 3 years at blue belt, you know, and that's a long time, man.
For sure.
I haven't done anything for 5 years.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So, it's a hard thing to stick to. And if, like I said, if you get hyper focused on that tangible reinforcement, it's hard. It's hard, man.
So, what do you think helps you personally be able to visualize that long-term, that longevity, that long-term success, rather than the short-lived of those tangible reinforcements? Is it a routine? Is it a mindset? Is it the people you keep around you, or?
Yeah, it's I think it's a little bit of all of that. So for as much as I study like the importance of routine and stuff like that to being successful, I am very bad at keeping a routine.
Sure.
Especially, you know, when I have new clients or clients with weird schedules and stuff like that. My day, even week to week, you know, the class schedule at the gym is always the same, but my routine changes kind of weekly, you know, so it's hard to stay in a set routine.
Right.
For me, the only routine I really have is just showing up, just being here, you know.
Right.
And a lot of times that's as much of a routine as I have. I try to control the end of my day, make sure I get home and do everything in the same steps and stuff, which helps me close down and you know, kind of recap the day and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, the routine is honestly just showing up. Mm-hmm. And that kind of fluidity makes it a little bit easier sometimes, because I think, okay, all I have to do is just get to the gym. That's all I have to do today. All I have to do is show up, and then everything else will take care of itself.
Right.
I think the mindset that keeps me going, you kind of mentioned like purple belt signifies that, you know, you're becoming an instructor. Mm-hmm. Right? And when I started training at the gym, I was already a coach. Like basically from the first day I was consistent at the gym. I was coaching fitness classes, right? And I wanted to be, you know, a personal trainer and stuff like that. So that was kind of, again, from my first day on the mats, my goal was to be a coach. And I thought I wanted to be a fitness coach, or I thought I wanted to do this, thought I wanted to do that. But as I've gone, becoming an instructor and being able to pass on the knowledge that I gained has become the focal point for me.
Okay.
And so that the mindset that develops around that is that I feel to be a good instructor is you have to also be a good student, and you have to keep learning, right? So every day I'm at the gym, I learn. And the more I learn, the more knowledge I have to pass on, right? The more I enrich myself as a person, the more I can enrich those around me, right? So that's kind of the mindset that goes in, is I need to be better so I can help other people be better.
And that's self-generating, because there's no overabundance of knowledge. Right. You know, there's not a certain point in which you're done, where you know it all, and when you're finished. And I like that. You know, if that's one of your motivational factors, that's an everyday thing.
Right.
In every situation thing, every conversation thing.
Yes.
And I like that you, you know, you're honest about you're not good at keeping a routine. Sure. You know, because it's tough. There are a lot of, you know, there are a lot of things to balance on a day-to-day basis. I am not good at keeping a routine either. That's why it's right now that and, you know, essentially willpower are one of my main focuses.
Right.
And you should see my alarm clock. Look at my alarm clock. I've got it set up to, look at this, you know, going to bed at midnight, having to wake up at 5:10. So I've got all these different alarms.
Yeah, 5:10, 5:30, 6 o'clock, 6:30.
And that's not me hitting the snooze. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's waking up at 5:10, trying to get in and you know, crawling over in the dark and meditating until it goes off at 5:30. And then crawling over and writing down, you know, just some thoughts on the day or the meditate. You know, so just like you said, I'm not always motivated enough to do it. But if I can stick to these little, you know, if I can focus on this willpower that gets me there, that just gets you to the gym, everything else will take over. If it gets me down to start meditating, it'll happen. If it gets me over there to the desk to start writing, I'm going to write something. You know what I mean? It could be a whole bunch of nothing, but I'm there and I'm writing.
Exactly.
And then, you know, and then it goes off again then I got to run it. So, you know, and this is really regimented, and it doesn't always, it's not always realistic. But for right now, because I want to, like I said, that's the main focus. That's how I have to do it, you know, building this routine that now I feel like, you know, I almost become this machine to where now any other goals that are beyond myself, all it does is just get put into this machine, and I'm already ready to go. And these things just start, you know, coming into fruition, and the purple belt just, you know, gets laid in your lap on a random Thursday for you. So I think it's just awesome how it works, and you know, it's just it's great to show, because we're on here, we talk a bunch of shit all day long. Every Tuesday we get on here and talk some shit, but to really live it and to have things to show for it to show that it does work. That trusting the process is necessary.
Absolutely, man. Some of your phrasings in there, man, kind of really stuck out to me. Showing up, like you said, if it gets you out of bed to meditate, if it just gets you to the desk, if it just gets you to the place you need to be productive,
right,
the rest takes care of itself.
Sure.
Right? And I think people put in, so when you think about going to the gym, you think about, oh shit, I gotta get my bag together, I gotta go to the gym, I gotta show up, I gotta work out, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Man, the biggest thing, the hardest thing is everything that happens before you walk through that door. Everything else takes care of itself. I mean, how many times have you come in on a Tuesday or Thursday morning, man, got here, maybe felt like shit, maybe not really felt like it, and then next thing you know, an hour later you're done, and you don't even almost remember that.
Exactly.
And because it took care of itself.
Right.
It's like a Rube Goldberg machine. Boom, you hit that ball, it takes off down the track, it hits that first thing, and then everything else just handles itself. Doesn't really matter the craziness and stuff of the day, as long as you get it started.
What was that called?
Rube Goldberg?
Rube
Goldberg. The crazy ass shit where like, like you hit a marble, it runs down the track, it hits a match.
Sure.
So it's just like this big, intertwined.
Yep.
And then at the end of it all, like a piece of toast pops up, right? Very
Sure.
Okay. And another thing that really resonates with me big time, man, is how you said, and then the purple belt gets laid in your lap on a Thursday night. And to some people that sounds oversimplified, but to me, I think it's perfectly put.
Right.
Because I didn't do anything to get that purple belt other than show up.
Right.
I didn't do anything special.
Right.
I relied on my coach to instruct me and to guide me, and I did what he said. Honestly, literally all I had to do was show up.
Yeah.
All I had to do every single day. 5.5 years ago, I started that Rube Goldberg machine. And then last Thursday, boom, my purple belt falls in my lap at the end of it all.
Easy as that.
And it is. It really is, and yeah, there's a lot of mental battles and stuff that go on, but honestly, the biggest struggles happen off the mat. They happen, outside of here, outside the doors. Like I said, you got to get to the door, and everything takes care of itself. Right. Right. All the struggles were out there. All the struggles were getting to the door. Long days, late nights, stuff like that. They don't matter when I'm here. They matter when I go home and I'm tired and I'm sore and I hurt. I get up the next day and I hit my snooze alarm a bunch of times, right? And I'm not getting up meditating, and I'm not doing anything outside of the gym.
Right.
When I get here, it's busy, and I feel like I find that groove again.
Sure.
So yeah, man, just you show up, and then things happen on their own.
Right. Especially
like
when you have that familiar environment or the familiar community of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, you said something too about the people you surround yourself with, and that is probably the number one thing you hear from anybody who's ever successful in any endeavor. Surround yourself with like-minded people.
Yes.
Surround yourself with like-minded people, and it's so pertinent. It's so necessary. I have my closest friends are guys that are here and training with me. You know what I mean? Like Ed and Brendan, they're probably two of the people I'm closest to in the world, and they were here. And then as soon as I got done, I mean, I've got a good friend of mine, Brian, lives out in Colorado. He was a blue belt under Paul. Courtney, he's a blue belt under Paul. And they've both, since moved and stuff. But those are guys, like, as soon as it happens, those are guys I'm sending pictures to, because those are the guys that were instrumental in me getting here. And people that, like, I want to celebrate that with them, too, because, like, yeah, all the work I put in here, I'm in here putting in the work, but I have training partners that are here helping me, encouraging me.
Sure.
Guys that make it worthwhile to stay disciplined. People that I know, if I show up, they're going to be here. They're going to help me get better. I'm going to help them get better. Right. And so we can both teach and study from each other and learn from each other, and it's mutually beneficial, and just, again, like-minded people. You have to surround yourself with people whose goals are consistent with yours, and you can work with, and then what's awesome about that is when you hit that accomplishment, then you have people to share it with. And people who understand the significance of it. Sure. And that's awesome too.
Yeah. And and even on the, because there's always the positive of it, but even people to confide in, or when you have a day in which you're struggling, they know what that feels like, genuinely. Yeah. I think that's one of the main reasons, beside, being health conscious and working out for the exercise, one of the main reasons why I keep coming back here because I know the people that I am around, whether I know them personally or not, even in just casual conversation, we have that underlying characteristic in common as far as wanting to be better every single day.
Sure.
You know, and there's a lot that goes, you know, into something like that you can't always find outside of the gym or outside of something like this. And so I think it's, I don't know, always just drawn here.
Yeah, and I think that's, and I think for some people, and I know there's definitely been days it's done it for me too, like that's enough of a reason to get us to the door, is that we know we're not going to find people we need out there, you know, and sometimes we're like, I got to get to the gym because I'm going to see so-and-so, I'm going to talk to someone. Or even like you said, I mean, even if you don't know the people that are here, you know that they're here for the same reason.
Exactly.
They're here to put sweat on the mats, and they're here to learn, and they're here to get better, you know? Which, it's so critical, man. And it's such an amazing thing that I think is unique to like martial arts culture. So, you know, outside of like being at Planet Fitness, or, you know, maybe I shouldn't use that name. Do we have to trademark that or pay them royalties or something?
I don't think they're watching. They're not watching.
So, but yeah, just being at you know, a regular gym where people are just going in, and people are very isolated in like strength training gyms a lot of time, you know, but that's why CrossFit gyms do well.
Yeah.
So like group classes do well. That's why martial arts gyms do well for your spirit.
Yes.
You know, for that inner peace, or that inner growth, you know, is because you end up around like-minded people.
Sure.
You know, and you feel that connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got a band practice later this afternoon, and it's one of those things where there's, you know, we all have to find a day off, you know, the perfect day off, and everyone has to be on the same page, and you know, there's a lot else going on in the world to be able to get to practice. But the thing is, once we get up in the attic there, and just start jamming, it all comes back. We're all there for the same reason. Like there's not a better feeling.
Right.
There's not a better feeling.
Yep.
And I can't necessarily get that on my own, just, you know, going over some bars or some lines or songs. But it's everyone playing their part and being there for the same reasons and having, you know, similar goals. It really is that driving factor to where the practice feels like a show. Yeah. And there's no one there but us. Yeah. So I think I always thought that was important. You know, the fact that it just that it felt like it was showtime. It felt like we were going 100% every single time, just because we love to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean the commonality there is you just have to get there. You just have to get everybody through that door, and then once it's there, it's just like you said, it takes care of itself.
Sure.
And that energy, and it's irreplaceable. You know, it's unique. You know, and I know that, you know, there's a lot of times, man, you be at practice, and I mean, I've, you know, been playing in different bands here and there for a long time, and I mean, you know, we've been there in the attic together, man, and just boom, you just pour everything out, and you have a good 3 or 4 hour practice, man. And you just the energy and the closeness you feel to the you know, the guys that you're playing with and stuff, man. It's profound for sure. You know, it makes it worth your while to get through the door. Yeah.
You know, it makes it seem like anything is possible, and you leave with a high.
Yeah, absolutely.
Metaphorically speaking.
Of course.
So I guess when I mentioned before, you know, it takes 1 year to 3 years to pick up the belt. I was thinking from the jump, from the start, from the white belt to the purple. But you're saying from the blue to the purple. Yeah. That's the 3 years. So I mean, that's intense, and that's a solid chunk of time in which you got to stay focused.
Right.
But now, it's not always humanly possible to stay focused like that for the entire duration. Sure. Do you find that when you find your focus wanes, how do you kind of reel that back in?
Couple different things I've experimented with through the years, and one, actually, to clarify, it really depends on the school. It depends on how dedicated the student is and stuff like that. I mean, some guys, like I was just reading an article, a dude got his brown belt in 2.5 years. From day one, he got his brown belt in 2.5 years. But that's like 4 to 5 hours a day of training, 6 days a week. Sure. he was a tremendous athlete, wrestler, and stuff like that. So it really depends on where you're at, what your instructor is looking for, what you're trying to get out of it. And like I said, my focus has waned here and there over the years, right? And so it kind of ties into the question you asked. Like I've lost focus from time to time. A couple months ago, I was able to go out to Colorado and train with Dwayne Ludwig and receive my blue belt in the Bang Muay Thai system while I was out there. Right?
Okay.
I don't think anybody has any doubt that that's not just something you show up and get. And so, I mean, I've been training Muay Thai under various different coaches and stuff for probably about 4.5 years now. And especially once we scheduled our trip out there, so there was about 4 months before we went that I was just completely focused on Muay Thai, understanding the Bang Muay Thai system, learning, trying to make sure that I was prepared for what, Sensei Ludwig was looking for when I went out there. I wanted to make sure I was ready. Well, my focus shifted from jiu-jitsu to Muay Thai. Okay. So I was training jiu-jitsu 1 to 2 hours a day, 3 to 4 days a week, which for me is a huge drop off. Like there was a point in time where I would train jiu-jitsu for anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, 4 to 6 days a week. And that was like regular, consistent training for me.
Right.
I'm lucky enough to have, friends down at Bering Jiu-Jitsu. I can go down there and train. We don't have guys here to train with. They bring guys down. I have, friends from Syracuse that would come up and train. We have a great jiu-jitsu program here, so pretty much any time I wanted, I could always find someone to train with. And so when I'm jiu-jitsu focused, it's, I can get 4 or 5 hours a day of training if I want it.
Right.
When I switched my focus away from jiu-jitsu, I was just kind of basically maintaining what I do in jiu-jitsu.
Right.
If you want to get promoted, if you want to progress, you have to be putting in the hours like you want to progress, right? So I shifted my focus to Muay Thai, and I was very much falling in love with the art and the exploration of Thai, and that was my focus. And so that's what I was training 3 or 4 hours a day, So to get refocused, once I got that blue belt, and then I came back and I really wanted to make sure my Thai program was developing well and my students were getting the best knowledge I could offer them and stuff. So that was where my heart and my soul were, So just kind of letting my focus from jiu-jitsu wane. And then once I felt like things were at a good point of stasis, where I felt like my students had a good hold of the curriculum and the material we wanted, I was able to shift my focus back to jiu-jitsu, And what was nice about that is being multidisciplined is that when I feel like I'm stagnant in one, I can focus on another. And so jiu-jitsu became fun for me again because I wasn't doing it all the time. And so when I shifted my focus back to jiu-jitsu, I kind of had rediscovered my love for it and a desire to train harder and stuff. So that helped me refocus in that particular instant.
Nice.
Finding something else to do for a little while, finding something else to focus on, because you plateau. We talk about this just in life in general all the time. You plateau, you get stuck, and you just sit there and spin your wheels. And jiu-jitsu is no different. Sure. I draw so much of like what's gone into helping me develop the day one mindset is what I've learned in jiu-jitsu and how I approach jiu-jitsu, and then how I approach life, or how I approach life determines how I approach jiu-jitsu. So before that, a lot of times getting refocused is just a matter of just keep coming in, man, and just grind out that plateau. Just keep going through the motions, and you get pissed off and you get frustrated and you feel like you're not progressing, or you feel like, sometimes you're just like, I'm never gonna get to purple belt. I'm never gonna move forward, because the ultimate goal, is black belt. And then once you're black belt, then you kind of like start over, then you have to rediscover yourself again. So it's just that constant breaking yourself back down to start over.
I like how you were saying it's a refinement. You have to refine that passion. And redefine that passion for what it is you're going after.
Yes.
I've got this, what do you call it, a whiteboard right above my desk. And this it's kind of a play on words, but it's refine your love. It's, let me see. Yeah, there it is. I don't know if that's backwards to y'all, but that's something that I was just going through because my motivation was gone. I thought my creativity was kind of slipping through my hands, and I couldn't understand it, but it was a matter of plateauing and not recognizing it for what it was. And so to take time to do something else that is also creative, maybe in a different way, which gave me different perspective on, you know, writing songs or things like that. And it helped me take a step back and refined what it was that I loved about music or words or the art of putting those together in a way that expresses something that is unique to me and that can be communicated, you know, to the rest of the world.
So kind of reinstilling that sense of purpose through your art.
Sure. And it's not always is your passion based off the original motivation for me, you know? So I think to relearn who and where you are right now and to redefine that passion and what it means to you now moving forward is one of the most important things, because not necessarily the same things you were doing to get from a blue belt to a purple are what's going to get you from a purple to a brown.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, like, have you taken the time yet to reflect and be like, okay, this is maybe what I need to add to my routine or life or work ethic in order to get to the brown belt, or does it not happen that quickly?
So we actually, Coach Paul and I sat down a couple weeks ago and we're discussing kind of progression and stuff like that. And he, you know, so he got his black belt a little over a year ago, and I know he meditates a lot on, because he's responsible for developing the program here, so he meditates a lot on what he's looking for in his students to progress and stuff like that. And so luckily I'm in a situation where I get enough personal time with him. He kind of divulged to me a little bit of what his philosophy was on like what it takes to get from purple to brown belt and stuff, and then from brown to black. So I kind of have a little bit of a head start. Like he, you know, what's so awesome about having an instructor that's been through the paces, right? And why it's so important to be a student as an instructor as well, is because he can pass on to me what he's already learned, and like I know what to expect and kind of how to gear my mindset moving forward, you know. So he's already paved the way a little bit for me as far as what my next contemplation should be, and how I should adjust my mindset and stuff like that to get from one milestone to the next. And you know, so we talk a lot about redefining purpose, so, you know, kind of like you were saying, but I think there's a little bit too of, even when we have the same purpose for a long period of time, again, my purpose the whole time I've been training jiu-jitsu is to get better, you know, ultimately become, you know, be in a point where I can help others get better, right? That's the purpose, that's the reason behind it. And even when I go back and I reevaluate things, a lot of times it doesn't end up being redefining the purpose, because I find myself consistently being driven to that purpose. It's not redefining it, but it's refining it. Kind of like you said, kind of an understanding, okay, this is where my path is right now. How do I need to restructure my path to get back towards that purpose? Right? Because sometimes our path steers us off course a little bit, or there's necessary milestones, but it's not a straight path up the hill. You know, it's boom, boom. It's back, you know, kind of zigzagging going up the mountain, right? Because we need to hit these certain points. So kind of like you said, from blue to purple, it was one direction. Now from purple to brown, I need to, you know, make this shift, right? And refinding that, the next necessary steps to continue to progress kind of in that fashion.
Yeah. I like, so I had written something down not too long ago, the soul moves in circles. So that whole thing about it's not just going to be a straight line for you. You know, whatever direction that takes you, there's always something to be learned that still is connected to that core insight or that core drive. Absolutely.
And it's like a spiral. Right? And you and that's a metaphor that Paul likes to use, is that jiu-jitsu is circular, you know, because the first time, you know, we take an arm bar is kind of, you know, like a real basic 101 technique. The first time you learn an arm bar for one position, you pick up, you know, so many details. You circle back around to it, and the second time you come to it, you're like, oh shit, well, this is what I was missing.
Yep.
And the third time you come to it, you keep adding and adding and adding, and no matter how many times, like you're circling, you're getting closer to that point of, you know, ultimate refinement. But you never get there, you know. And every time you circle back around, you pick up something new and something new and something new.
Yeah, that album, The Process, that I had written, because I was looking for that sort of insight into my own future, where I wanted to be, you know, and it wasn't, I didn't write that knowing where I wanted to be necessarily.
Right.
I wrote that knowing where I was coming from and where I was at and what I can add to myself.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And all of a sudden I'm writing these songs, and it's, in the picture, it's like going from blurry to clear, you know, when you got the camera and you're twisting a little thing, and it's clear and clear and clear and clear. The more you can focus in on it. And it was the song that I had written titled Full Circle that was my sign as far as what I needed to do after that, after the album was done.
Right.
You know, and it was, you know, and within that song, it was talking about the same thing. You know, the fact that from the point we start out, rotating all the way around, we don't get to level up until we come full circle to that understanding of where we've been and where we want to go. And that's how we get to that next level. And then the process starts all over again. But with everything gained, with all that experience gained through that trip around the sun, or however you want to say it.
It's a slightly new perspective every time you come back to it. You know, just pick up new details and add, and just constant building process. You know,
perspectives.
One thing that popped into my mind when you were talking about like when you plateau, like artistically, writing and stuff like that, is the importance of playing, of having a hobby or having something you can do that just lets your mind wander. You know what I mean? Whether it's reading a book, where it's just something outside of your main focus. You know, and I think that's the thing. That's why I love having two arts that I love so much to study, is that when jiu-jitsu gets frustrating, I'll go play Muay Thai. I'll just go play kickboxing, right? And then like if I'm hyper focused on Muay Thai, if I start getting frustrated with something, I'll go play jiu-jitsu. I'll just go play jiu-jitsu. And I don't, and when I'm playing, I don't care if I get submitted. I don't care, you know, if I'm sparring. Like we were playing last Thursday, right? And we were getting tagged, but you know, and obviously it's an aggressive form of play, but it's fun because like I'm not worried about being right or wrong. I'm just letting my body do whatever, you know. And there's a lot of room for discovery when you're not worried about the errors, you know. And when you're hyper focused on something, like so for you probably when you're hyper focused on writing, or if you have an idea for an album, or if you like I have to get this song done, I have to get, you know, my goal for this month is 3 songs, you know, and you're focused on that, and you feel like, I think that's when you feel like you plateau. But if you take the time to go play, you know, you come here and you play boxing, or you play kickboxing, or you know, you go run, or you read, or you just do something that you can't be wrong when you're doing it. It gives you that little space to breathe, you know, and lets you be creative, and lets your mind make connections that you weren't otherwise making, you know. And so that play time, that's when the epiphanies happen and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Breakthroughs come, you know.
Absolutely. No, that's a definitely a valid point, and it's just a productive use of time. You know, a productive use of time, which is going to be beneficial no matter what. But I mean, boxing for me is the play. You know, because writing is very up here. You know, the mind is continuously working. But when it comes to you know, physical activity or things like boxing, that's all instinct and reaction and stuff you don't have to think about. So the mind kind of moves freely. And you're almost in that your own zone, in the own flow spot, which I would love in the future if we talk about being in the zone and being in the flow of things. So that'll be coming soon, trust me. But you know, I just don't want to extend this one. You get too far, you know. This is what happens though.
Turns into a day with Quince and Rick.
We got 5 o'clock shadows. But no, I think play is definitely necessary in order to rejuvenate the soul and that spirit, and to get back into what you're doing.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Finding joy in life too, you know, helps break the focus, but ultimately helps kind of refine the focus too.
Yeah.
You know, sure.
Yeah.
So, awesome.
Well, yeah. I mean, are there any things you want to add about the one thing, and I think it's come up before, but you would definitely speaking heavily about it, is the benefit of a mentor, finding someone who has done it before, who has seen it before, who has already blazed that path. How much easier in your life is it than just doing it blindly, I'll say?
Yeah, man, I don't even know how to quantify that, honestly. Finding, you know, having a mentor, having someone to look to, and when you feel lost, and obviously everybody's going to come up with their own way. Everybody finds their own way, you know. But when you have someone that you can look to, and you can learn what to expect, or they can tell you how they responded when they experienced that, so you have ideas of what to try. And ultimately, there's always trial and error.
Sure.
You know, I always relate it back to the parents with their kids. You tell your kid not to touch a hot stove, but they're going to.
Right.
And all you can do is tell them, well, put some burnt cream on it afterwards. You
right.
know? But that's essentially what your mentor does for you, is they tell you what pitfalls to expect, and how to deal with them when you get there, and ultimately you still have to experience them on your own. As much as we can, we learn from other people, but I think experience is the best teacher. So having that mentor and understanding that, one, we're not completely off base when we mess something up, and two, that we can come out of it.
Sure.
You know, and then when you are having trouble, like for me, you know, especially having Paul as a mentor in jiu-jitsu, is like, I'm struggling with this technique. You can just say, bam, this is the answer. So that saves me hours and hours and hours of troubleshooting on my own.
Sure.
You know, but again, I'm experiencing the same pitfall he did. He knows the answer to it, so I know who to go to.
Right.
You know, and then being able to rely on, like, you know, Sensei Ludwig. If I have a question, okay, well, we're working on this movement pattern, I can text him, and he'll send me a video of, hey, this is what we need to do. This is where you should work, or think of it in this terms. You know what I mean? How, like, so having these coaches that are you know, like you said, have been through the paces and stuff, man. It just, I ultimately, yeah, it does. It makes the process easier and quicker, I guess. But it's a lot of reassurance too, man. It just makes it so much more comfortable to go through the uncomfortable stuff, knowing that there's success.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
makes it more comfortable going through the uncomfortable stuff. And that was just something that I didn't want to pass up, because the value of having, you know, a predecessor or a mentor. Yeah. You know, like, if there are things you love to do, or if you have a passion, or there's a career that you want, I mean, find somebody that does it. Yeah. You know, and don't be afraid. You know, let them know that this is where you're trying to go with your life, and you know, see if you could pick their brain. I think a lot of people would be flattered. You know, they certainly wouldn't be opposed.
Well, especially with the prevalence of social media and stuff, man. Like these and so many of these people that do well and set a high standard in their field and stuff. So many of them are so much more approachable than we realize they could be. You know, so yeah, absolutely. Like you're saying, man, don't hesitate. Don't be bashful about reaching out to people that you look up to and stuff. Or if you have questions about it, reach out to those people.
Absolutely,
you know?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And you know, that's kind of the last thing I wanted to leave. You know, these guys leave you with. So, unless you had anything to add on to it.
Just show up, man. That's the general recap of everything that it takes to get anywhere in life, is just show up.
Yep.
Just walk through the door.
Yep.
For sure.
Love it, man. We'll catch you guys next week. Same time, same place.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us, guys.